Malachi in the second half, and Malachi 1 talks about, God's having a conversation with his people. And a lot of times when when you see a conversation or how the people are reacting, it's more like their spirits are speaking, and when the people are asking God, how have you loved us? A lot of times people don't directly say that, but their heart is saying that to God, right? So we're going to cover that in the second half, but I want to talk about a background here in Judges as well. In Malachi, talks about, the people here thinks that they don't think God is loving them, and there's a tithing issue, there's divorce issues, there's adultery issues, a lot of issues here going on. And we're going to give you the background why this conversation is occurring. Because a lot of times we read the scripture and we don't know the context of the background, and so we only pick and choose what we think we can understand, and we don't get the full picture, right? And so we have to understand the full context so we can understand what God requires from us, from his people. Because the problem is that we don't realize what God requires from us, and so we fall short. We fall short of his glory, we fall short of his requirements, and we don't get our full reward. We don't get our full blessing. In fact, we're experiencing, many Christians out there, you're experiencing curses, you're experiencing sickness, you're experiencing, the enemy devouring your harvest, as in Malachi 3, the enemy is devouring the harvest. We're experiencing, being the tail and not the head. We're the ones living in poverty when we should be living the abundant life. And, even before Christ, God's people had this opportunity, and this opportunity is still available today. But God's people, just as before, we continue to make the same mistake over and over and over. And sometimes, God just watches as generation goes by. And, from Malachi to Christ, it was 400 years of silence, right? And so that 400 years of silence can also represent silence for an individual when God is not speaking to you, or God is not answering you, or God is not, manifesting to you. There's a period of silence, and so people get mad at God, thinking that God is the problem when, the problem is really us, right? And we're going to touch a little bit on tithing because Malachi does touch tithing. And so one of the backgrounds I want to give is the book of Judges here. Judges 17. And if the book of Judges has like different stories. And one of the themes of Judges is that the people of God did not have a king, right? A core leader. So they had judges who would rule at certain seasons in time. And if you read Judges, you see that one of the characteristics, or what happens is that when God's people start forsaking God, all right? When God's people start forsaking God, what does God do? He actually raises up the enemy, right? He raises up their next door neighbors, the enemy, to come and oppress them, to come and conquer them. In fact, when the Midianites came and oppressed God's people, they came and stole all their harvest to the point where God's people were starving. Why is God allowing this? So that they can cry out to God for help, right? And that's the only times when we actually cry out for help, is when there's a crisis. And there's a vicious cycle occurring constantly with God's people. Things get good, we get complacent, we start looking at idols, we don't follow God's commandments, and then God has to enforce discipline using the enemy. And in today's time, God doesn't actually, sometimes he would allow another nation to get stronger. But the spiritual enemy, he will allow the enemy, the devil, to come and start harassing you. And then when we get harassed to the point where it's unbearable, we start crying out to God, right? And then when you cry out to God, God comes and helps you. We get some relief. And then you get comfortable again. And then we start falling backwards again, away from God. This is a very classical pattern you do not want to fall into. When another nation becomes stronger, if our nation here in America, when there's another nation that actually gets stronger, or whether it's a terrorist, when they get stronger and when we get attacked, you have to look at it from an internal point of view of, you can't look at it, oh, the enemy's attacking and we got to pray and rebuke that enemy. You have to look at it from a position, why has this happened? Because in Bible pattern, when the enemy is allowed to get stronger, another nation, and attack God's people, it meant that God's people were forsaking God. And that's why that protection was being lifted. And so if our nation is being attacked by another nation and getting stronger, we have to look at ourselves, right? When 9/11 happened, you have to look at yourselves, us as a Christian nation, that God is sending a message to us, the Christians. You see, when 9/11 happened, they said in that first month, every church was filled. It was filled. And then guess what? It started drifting away again. And that attendance went back to normal before 9/11. When there's a crisis, people rush. And then there's a little relief, they go back to their other lives, right? They missed the point. And so then God, and then maybe another incident will happen 10 years down the road. You see, to us, that's a long time, so we forget. But 10 years is nothing to God, right? And if another incident hits, it's because we ignore the first incidents. And this pattern is the biblical pattern is in the Bible, how God's people, right, they handle God's warnings. Now, here in the book of Judges in 17, I'm going to start from 6 here and just read a few chapters. In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes, right? That's actually occurring today. Many Christians, see, all the churches have no king in a sense where the churches out there, the denominations, do not subject themselves under one authority, under the Holy Spirit, right? They all say we do it this way. They all say we believe it this way. Yes, God is our king, of course, but they're like the tribes. The denominations can be like the tribes, and they all got their own ways, and they're just doing what they believe is right. Worship, church service, interpretation, they're doing what seemed right in their own eyes. And that's why a lot of these churches got big problems. That's why Christians got big problems. Why? Because we're doing things that seemed right in our own eyes. We're doing it our own way. And if you read the Bible, right, what is before destruction? Your pride. So when things don't go right with our lives, you have to look and see if you've been prideful in those decisions that you have made. Verse 7, one day a young Levite who had been living in Bethlehem in Judea arrived in that area. 8, he had left Bethlehem in search of another place to live. And as he traveled, he came to the hill country of Ephraim. He happened to stop at Michal's house as he was traveling through. "Where are you from?" Michal asked him. He replied, "I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Judea, and I am looking for a place to live." So why is a Levite from Bethlehem in Judea have to leave to look for a place to live? All right. 10. So the guy says, "Stay here with me, and you can be a father and priest to me. I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year, plus a change of clothes and your food." 11, the Levite agreed to this, and the young man became like one of Michael's sons. 12, so Michael installed the Levite as his personal priest, and he lived in Michael's house. 13, I know the Lord will bless me now, Michael said, because I have a Levite serving as my priest. Now, Michael here has idols, okay? He has idols and shrines, and he doesn't have a priest, but he's doing his own thing. And now the question is, why is a Levite leaving his position, his home area, in search to live in another place? And then in verse 11, why is he so happy to agree to receive 10 pieces of silver a year, a salary, okay? This is a salary. And change of clothes, so salary, provisions, he's all excited, right? Now, as we go into the other chapter, the tribe of Benjamin will come and steal him, right? And they're doing their own thing too. Now, the background on this is because God's people were forsaking tithing and offering in the temple. And so it forced the priests to scatter. And now the priests had to scatter because they had to go find a way to live, right? And when they had to go find a live, he's just looking for a place. And so Michael here is agreeing, hey, I'll give you a salary. You be a priest to me. I'll give you provision. I'll give you housing. I'll give you food. I'll give you clothes. And he agreed to it, right? And so this is not God's way. This is scattering God's priests because God's people are not obeying, right? And we'll come into the story of Malachi. The same thing is occurring. God's people are not tithing. God's people are not following God properly. In fact, they got idols as well. And so good things are not happening, right? Now, you can go to church, and they were still worshiping God to a degree. They were still coming to church. They still learning the word to a degree, but their heart is not fully into it, right? And if you're not going to obey God fully, you're not going to receive the full blessings of God. And then when people don't receive the full blessings of God, you know what happens to them? They start getting resentful towards God. They start giving God blemished sacrifices like they did with the animals. Now, we don't give blemished sacrifices, but we won't treat God with the utmost respect, right? And when you have to give your service to God, when you worship to God, when you sing to God, when you evangelize out there for God, or when you walk as a Christian trying to represent yourself as an ambassador to Christ, we are walking with our heads down, with a complaining face, and we're telling people, we're telling your relatives, believe in Jesus, but in reality, we're angry at God, right? How are people really going to accept that and start believing in Jesus when they're looking at our lives and go, you don't really mean it? In fact, the wicked are prospering and you're not. The unbelievers are prospering, you're not. People of God, that's how they're going to look at us. And they're going to go, why should I believe in Jesus when the wicked are prospering? I should go and hang out and do what the world does, enjoy life, go work hard, go work for these internet companies, get rich, go enjoy myself, and you want me to do what? You want me to believe in Jesus, but yet you look like you're miserable. Who's going to believe us? And then you're going to answer God. And we're going to say to God, hey, God, I evangelized. I did my part. God's going to say, rejected. Unacceptable. Blemished sacrifice you were. Not a living sacrifice, blemished sacrifice. And that work that we did was out of your own strength, obligation, with bad attitude, unacceptable. and you're just wasting time. You see, you're wasting time. That's why God said in the Malachi, just close the doors of the temple. What's the use of you people going in and giving me this false worship, right? This false honor. You're wasting your time. Someone shut the door, he said. You guys are all wasting time. And we don't want to come to this point. We don't want to live the rest of our lives believing we are Christians, and we served him, we believed in him with a half a heart, with a complaining mind, complaining heart, right? Not in full determination, full commitment, full, right? Full passion serving God, but dragging your feet, throwing God crumbs, thinking of ourselves more, right? Oh, where's my attention, God? Where's my attention? How come you didn't do this for me? How come you're not giving me attention, God? How come you didn't give me the power? How come you did this to me, God? How come you made me suffer, God? You know, when we go over Malachi, you're going to understand why God didn't do his part. It's because his people didn't do their part. And God waited. And you know, we got to humble ourselves. We can't be prideful to the point that we're going to challenge God on judgment day and say, "You didn't do your part, God." You know, we got power or something. We got leverage that we can tell God, you didn't do your part. You didn't give me all the maximum chances. You didn't give me no grace. You didn't give me no opportunity. We're going to say that to him? Right? No, you have no power when you face him. And this is the life now that we have. And we are living in the days of grace where you have a Bible everywhere on your phone now, right? And we're gonna say, God, well, I didn't know. You know, even man's law, ignorance to the law is no excuse. You can't go, I forgot to read God, when it was everywhere. Well, I forgot to tithe, God, even though you're the richest generation of all history. Oh, I forgot to pray, God, except we got the most time and we'll go on the most vacations, and we are the richest generation since history. We got no time for God. God will expect more from this generation. He will expect more from us. We got to get out of the complaining mode, out of the grumbling mode, right? Out of the self-pity mode, and get with the program, right? You know, I'm listening to one song. Where is it? Okay. It's the instrumental. Let me see if I can get the... Okay, I only have the instrumental. So, this song, right, is by Hillsong. I will exalt you, right? I will exalt you. And I was meditating on this song. Our life, your focus, your objective, your time here on earth. Let my life exalt you, Lord. Let my life exalt you. For every moment, for what I do, what I think, what I say, let my life exalt you. Because that's why we're here. That's why you've been created. That's why you are born, to exalt and glorify the King. But we spend too many time arguing, complaining, grumbling, because what you don't have, you know how much we have compared to 100 years ago? Do you know how wealthy we are? We have so much. We have hot water, air conditioning, electricity, we have carpet. Only praise and thanksgiving should be coming from our mouth and hearts. Not, oh, you know, oh, you hurt me, you say this, you say that. We're all guilty. Renew your mind, my life. So as I was praying this week, that's how I'm focusing. Let my life exalt you, Lord. Let my life exalt you, Lord. Let my life exalt you. Whatever I do, let my life exalt you. Just focus on exalting Him. Don't worry about what you don't have. Don't worry about what someone else has. Don't worry about what you've been through. Don't worry about all that. You're here to glorify God. And what if you've gone through some difficulties? You know, like Joseph, look at the good things that you got already. What are you going to go complaining? Oh, look, brothers, you threw me in a ditch. We're going to start still grumbling about that? Even after God has made Joseph number 2 man, is he going to grumble? No, he thanks God. Look what God has done for me. It was God who put me there, so He can save you, brothers. Let my life exalt you, God. Whatever I've been through in life, let my life exalt you. Let my life of obedience exalt you, Lord. If I have to suffer for you, let it still exalt you. If I die for you, let it exalt you. You know, God's taking this church in these last days to a higher level. And you got to get with the program. Stop looking back. Stop complaining about yourself. Stop complaining about everything. You are here to exalt the King of Kings. Amen? All right, I'll stop there. Thank you, Lord. Let's give the Lord a hand.